Hi, everyone, and welcome to Alive in the Archive. I'm Eliza Samuelson here with the Feminist Institute, a not-for-profit organization dedicated to collecting, digitizing, and sharing the rich history of feminist art, humanities, business, and politics, and making our archive globally accessible for free. In this episode, I get the pleasure of talking with Social Secretary for the Obama administration, founder of educational initiatives beGirl.world and the Black Girl 44 Scholarship, as well as founder of social media impact consulting firm Hook and Fasten, Deesha Dyer. Deesha, welcome to Alive in the Archive.
Thank you so much. It's so great to be here with you.
Yeah, I'm excited. So to kick us off, Deesha, the amount that you have created in your career has required a lot of leadership. However, you have talked about in the past that you didn't always consider yourself a leader because you had this idea that a leader kind of had to have the highest level of education or like the most profound pedigree. And at the Feminist Institute, our goal is to make the history of feminist contributions accessible to all, regardless of educational status or means. And you've really dedicated yourself to making education more accessible, specifically for Black girls and women. So, kind of talking about your experience with your own education, working in the White House, and starting these educational initiatives, how has it shaped your view on the importance of education?
Definitely. Thank you so much. And again, thanks for being here. It's so great. I wish we were in person.
I know.
Anyway,
Soon.
I know soon. So that's a great question because honestly, I came from a background where education, it was something that you should get like high school, but going to college, it was kind of like, if you can afford it, if you can afford to go, if you know what you're going to do, then you should definitely go. But that was obviously not me. And it's also not a lot of 17 and 18-year-olds coming out of high school.
Mhm.
I tried the college route. I only wanted to go to one school. There's one school that I wanted to go to. It was a HBCU, historically Black college, and I didn't get in. So once I didn't get into that school, I was like, well, that's the omen that I just don't belong in higher education.
Mhm.
But I did end up going back to school to another college and ended up dropping out. And I think that, my career from there, my life trajectory was all over the place, whether it was, a hip hop journalist and, worked at an airline for a while, in a hotel, in the mall. And I think that, Liza, when you're in those jobs, you think to yourself, like, not that they're dead end. I never thought that, but you're just like, I'm just not smart enough in some ways to get like to be in college. Like I just didn't understand how people made it through college. I was like, they go through a whole 4 years like straight of this. Like I lasted one semester, And so I think that once I did go back to college, and it was community college in my 30s, and then
Mhm.
went to went to intern for the Obamas and got a job there. I think for me, that's when it clicked that all of those things that I did from in between my college time was all education, honestly. Like I learned about writing, being a journalist, and I learned about the airline industry, and I learned about all these things. And so for me, going into the White House with no degree, then changed to a community college degree, I wanted other women, especially Black women, to see that, like, you don't have to go a traditional route at all in any which way that you're going to go. And I think that we also need to look at it and say, like, those non-traditional people is what we need in some of these public service careers, honestly, because they know exactly, they are the public. They know exactly what the public wants. They weren't taught it in school, or, they actually lived it, and it's a lived experience, right? And so I think that really shaped me and all the initiatives that I do, because I want to make sure that like somebody knows that I'm out there for them, that Black Girl 44 is out there, and beGirl.world's out there, that we're here, and we can't reach everybody, it's not possible. We don't have the funds for that. But just like you all, you do what you can and say that there is no limitation, and I'm not putting any elitism on it. Like I want
Mhm.
you to know that you are worthy of these opportunities, whether you have no degree or whether you have a doctorate. I was at the White House with people who had multiple doctorates, and I was in meetings right with them, and it was just like, well, I guess we both made it here, so I think that for me, it really shaped what education is and the different ways that education can show up, but also that it's all valuable. It's all valuable. Whether it's a formal education or not.
Right. Well, in some circumstances, not having the degree is almost a benefit to you because you aren't coming in with preconceived ideas of like what this should look like or the role that you are meant to play. And you've remained very authentic. And I think you've talked about even when you were applying for, you know, the position at the White House as an intern, you're like, I don't have a college degree.
Yeah.
And you had said that that worked in your favor and you were
Mhm.
constantly just transparent with like, hey, this is what I bring to the table. Um,
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
and you've also talked about how, you know, you've always kind of been involved in activism and involved in your community even before you got to the White House, like in
Mhm.
Philadelphia. Um, but you still maintained involved in the community when you were at the White House, which
Yeah.
wasn't, you didn't really tell many people about it, but you were
Mhm.
involved in the community in DC.
I
Um,
was. Mhm.
how is that kind of, you know, important for you to maintain and keep activism like at that core?
Definitely. So the first thing so I want to respond to, always telling people I didn't have a college degree, and it was like I told trusted people. I kept it quiet from like, people that I thought were going to judge me. But honestly, at the White House, I didn't have anybody doing that. It was all kind of in my head. Like they were just like, okay, like okay, get to work. It's kind of like, I thought that it was a strike against me, and it really wasn't. But I think that me being transparent about it was also like a proof that like you didn't need these pedigree things to get where I was, and that was I wanted to prove that also to the other people that were there with me, right? And so that's that. But the community, community service, it's my backbone of my life. I mean, I don't know any other way to live my life, and I say that in a way, not in a I want to be a hero way, but in a way that I really don't know. Like, for me it was always that is the core of who I am. That's where I came from. At the end of the day, it's about the people. And so, even I'm in situations, sometimes I'm like, what about the people? And somebody's like, Deesha, like, like we're gonna get to that. And I'm like the first person to ask about that. And it's because I always want to stay connected to the community no matter what. And so when I was at the White House, you walk in these gates at 1600 Pennsylvania, it's beautiful. You have this great privilege, but then right across the street are people that are houseless, right? And right across the street, you have this. So it's kind of like, I didn't want to be that disconnected. And so I made sure that I made time to help out at a shelter. I helped out at a place for women that just got released from incarceration. And I worked out with, sex workers. And I didn't tell a lot of people because number one, I didn't want that was like my own little world. That was like what I did, and I just didn't want people to judge it. But I also needed that for myself. Like I needed it. I was doing it for the community, but I needed it for myself because I was like, I don't want to get too far from who I am and where I came from. And so the only way for me not to do that is to remain in contact with people so that I can go do my job during the day and represent them authentically. And it wasn't always easy. I was tired sometimes, right? But and the interesting thing is like no one knew like where no one knew really when I volunteered that I worked at the White House until I got promoted the last 2 years. And it was in the newspaper, and people were like, "What?" And I was like, "Yes, that's where I work." And they were just like floored. I mean, floored. I'm just like, "You work at the White House?" I'm like, "Yes, I've been there for 5 years."
Yeah.
And so yeah, so I think the community for me is not just a buzzword. It's ingrained to everything I do. To the point that I'm annoying to other people, but it's okay. That's like I don't know how to live any other way.